Why is letting go so hard? Part 1. It's a simple question, but it sits at the very heart of so much of our human struggle. We've all been there, haven't we? Lying awake at night, replaying a conversation from years ago, feeling that same hot flush of anger or embarrassment as if it just happened. Or maybe for you, it's the ghost of a past relationship, a shadow that looms over every new connection you try to make. You know you should move on. Everyone tells you to. You even tell yourself to. But you just can't. It feels like trying to let go of a part of your own body. It's the job you lost, the opportunity you missed, the person you used to be. We cling to these things, these memories, these identities, with a white-knuckled grip, even when it's clear that holding on is what's causing all the pain. It's a paradox that has tormented us for millennia. But what if the difficulty isn't a personal failing? What if it isn't a sign of weakness, but rather a sign that your brain is simply doing the job it was designed to do? And what if an ancient wisdom tradition, born thousands of years ago, understood the blueprint of this internal conflict and laid out a path, not to fight our nature, but to work with it? In this series, we're going to explore that very question. We're going to journey into the intricate wiring of the human brain to understand the neuroscience of why we hold on so tightly. And we will see how these modern scientific discoveries echo the profound insights of Buddhist philosophy. This isn't just about understanding a problem. It's about finding a new way to relate to it, a way that might just change how you see everything. To understand why letting go is so difficult, we first need to meet the key players in our own minds. Imagine your brain has an ancient, highly effective security system. The core of this system is a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. The amygdala is your emotional smoke detector. It's not a thinker, it's a reactor. Its job is to scan every experience for potential threats or rewards and to tag them with an emotional charge. When you have a painful experience, a harsh criticism, a sudden breakup, a moment of deep failure, your amygdala lights up and essentially shouts, "Pay attention. This is important. This is dangerous. Remember this so we can avoid it in the future." This emotional tag is then sent next door to the hippocampus, which you can think of as the brain's librarian. The hippocampus takes this emotionally charged event and files it away into your long-term memory. Because the amygdala flagged it as a high-priority threat, the hippocampus stores it in a very accessible, easily retrieved location. This was an incredibly useful system for our ancestors. Remembering the rustle in the bushes that was followed by a predator was crucial for survival. The system is designed to prioritize negative experiences because, from an evolutionary standpoint, forgetting a threat is far more dangerous than forgetting a pleasant moment. You don't die from forgetting where you saw a pretty flower, but you can die from forgetting where you saw a tiger. This creates what scientists call a negativity bias. Your brain is fundamentally wired to be like Velcro for bad experiences and Teflon for good ones. This is the first piece of our puzzle. The very hardware of our brain is designed to latch onto pain and fear. But it gets deeper. Every time you recall that painful memory, you aren't just passively viewing an old file. You're actively refiring the same neural circuits that were created during the initial event. There's a famous saying in neuroscience, known as Hebbian theory, that goes, "Neurons that fire together, wire together." Think of your brain as a dense forest. The first time you have a thought or an experience, you trample a small path through the undergrowth. If you walk that same path again, by ruminating on the memory, retelling the story, reliving the hurt, the path gets wider, smoother, and easier to travel. After weeks, months, or years of replaying an event, that little trail becomes a multi-lane superhighway. Your thoughts are now drawn down this path automatically, without any conscious effort. You have, quite literally, hardwired the pattern of holding on into the physical structure of your brain. So, when you try to just let it go, you're not fighting a feeling, you're fighting deeply ingrained neurochemistry. You're asking your brain to abandon a well-paved highway and start hacking a new path through the dense jungle with a machete. It's difficult, tiring, and feels unnatural because the path of least resistance leads right back to that old, familiar pain. Now, this is where our ancient wisdom comes in, because Buddhist thinkers identified this exact mechanism thousands of years before we had fMRI machines to see it. They gave it a name, upadana. This Pali word is often translated as clinging or attachment, but its literal meaning is more visceral. It means to take up or to feed upon. It's not a passive state. It's an active process of fueling and sustaining something. We feed the memories. We feed the resentments. We feed the regrets. We are actively supplying the energy that keeps these neural pathways strong. Buddhism also offered a foundational concept to counter this, anicca, or impermanence. The universe's fundamental law is that everything changes. Nothing is static. Relationships end. Our bodies age. Feelings arise and pass away. Moments come and go. The core of our suffering, according to this view, arises from the clash between our brain's separate attempt to create permanence and security, to hold on to what is pleasant and push away what is painful, and the universe's relentless reality of change. We are trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The tighter we squeeze, the faster it slips through our fingers. The suffering isn't in the water itself, but in the futility of our grip. From this, we can deduce something profound. The problem isn't the memory itself. The problem isn't the past event. The problem is the active clinging to it in the present moment. The pain of the initial event might have been a 10 on the scale, but the suffering we experience months or years later is the second arrow, as the Buddha called it. The first arrow is the event itself. It's unavoidable, a part of life. The second arrow is the one we shoot into ourselves. The rumination, the self-criticism, the story we build around the pain. Why did this happen to me? It's not fair. I'll never get over this. That is upadana. That is the process of paving that neural highway, of feeding the pain. However, a common misconception arises here. Many people hear letting go and think it means apathy, indifference, or even forgetting. Does letting go mean I should pretend it didn't happen? That I should be a doormat and let people walk all over me? But this is a fundamental misunderstanding. In fact, a quote from the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh clarifies this beautifully. Letting go gives us freedom, and freedom is the only condition for happiness. If in our heart we still cling to anything, anger, anxiety, or possessions, we cannot be free. Letting go is not about erasing the memory. The memory, filed away by the hippocampus, will likely always be there. Instead, letting go is about severing the emotional charge that the amygdala has attached to it. It's about letting the hot coal cool. You can still look at the coal. You can remember that it was once hot. You can learn the lesson not to pick up hot coals in the future, but you no longer have to feel the searing pain of its heat in your hand right now. You stop feeding it. You stop giving it your energy. So what does this mean for you right now as you think about that one thing you can't seem to release? It means that your struggle is not a sign that you are broken. It's a sign that you have a healthy, functioning human brain that is trying its best to protect you in the only way it knows how. It has learned a pattern, a survival strategy, and it is sticking to it. This understanding alone can be a profound relief. It allows us to move from self-judgment, what's wrong with me, to self-compassion. My brain is doing that thing again. This brings us to our first practice, a simple shift in awareness that you can apply anytime you feel that familiar grip of the past. The technique is often called name-it-to-tame-it, a phrase coined by neuropsychiatrist Dr. Dan Siegel. When that wave of anger, regret, or sadness rises, instead of getting swept away by it and saying, "I am angry," try to take a mental step back and simply label the experience. Say to yourself, "There is a feeling of anger here," or "This is what regret feels like," or even, "The clinging mind is active." What you are doing in that moment is a powerful act of neural jujitsu. By simply naming the emotion, you are activating a different part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. This is the more modern, rational part of the brain, the CEO, the adult in the room. Engaging the prefrontal cortex helps to down-regulate the reactive emotional amygdala. You are shifting from being a character lost in the movie of your pain to being the audience member watching it on the screen. You create a space, a tiny gap between you and the feeling. And in that space, freedom begins. So, as we bring this first part to a close, let's return to our initial question. Why is letting go so hard? As we have seen, it's hard because our brains are wired for survival, not for happiness. They cling to painful memories as a protective strategy, carving deep neural pathways that become our default mode of operation. This biological reality is the very same struggle that Buddhist wisdom identified as upadana, the active feeding of our own suffering by resisting the universal law of anicca or impermanence. But the most important takeaway is this: you are not your brain's automatic reactions. The fact that you can observe these patterns means you are more than them. Understanding the mechanism is the first step to changing the machine. The struggle is real, but it is not a life sentence. And in our next part, we will go even deeper, exploring the powerful story our brain tells itself to maintain this grip, the story of me, and how dismantling that story is the key to true liberation. What are your thoughts on this connection between neuroscience and ancient wisdom? Please share your reflections in the comments below. We read them all. If you found this exploration helpful, please press the like button and subscribe to Buddhism Wisdom, Spirituality, to continue this journey of discovery with us. Part 2. In Part 1, we were confronted with a profound mystery. We explored the meticulous research of scientists like Dr. Ian Stevenson, who documented thousands of cases of children with verifiable memories of past lives. This evidence, while not definitive proof, presents a serious challenge to the idea that our consciousness simply ends at death. It strongly suggests that something continues. But this leads to what might be the greatest paradox of all. The dominant philosophy of the East, Buddhism, is a cornerstone for the idea of rebirth. Yet, it simultaneously makes a radical claim that there is no permanent, unchanging soul, no essential you to be reborn. How can both of these be true? If there is no soul, what is it that reincarnates? To unravel this seeming contradiction, we need to dive into some of the most profound concepts of Buddhist thought. This is not just an intellectual exercise. Understanding this framework can fundamentally change how you see yourself, your actions, and your place in the universe. It is the how behind the what that we witnessed in those astonishing stories. The first and most crucial concept we must understand is anatta, which translates to not self or no soul. This is the bedrock of Buddhist philosophy. The Buddha looked inward and examined his own experience, and he concluded that there is no single, solid, continuous entity that we can call a self. Instead, what we think of as our self is a dynamic, ever-changing process, a temporary bundle of 5 elements: our physical body, our feelings, our perceptions, our mental habits and intentions, and our consciousness itself. There is no permanent CEO running the show. There is only the show itself, constantly unfolding. So, if there's no fixed self, how can there be rebirth? This is where the next key concept comes in: kamma or karma. We often think of karma as a cosmic system of reward and punishment, but its original meaning is much more direct and scientific. Karma simply means volitional action. It is the law of cause and effect applied to our intentions. Every action, word, or thought driven by a conscious intention, whether of greed, hatred and delusion, or of generosity, kindness, and wisdom, creates an energy, a potential. It plants a seed. These karmic seeds are carried in what Buddhism calls the vijnana soda, or the stream of consciousness. This is the key to understanding rebirth without a soul. Your consciousness is not a static thing. It is a continuous flow, a river of moment-to-moment awareness. It's never the same for 2 consecutive moments, but there is an unbroken continuity. The classic Buddhist metaphor to explain this is the flame of a candle. Imagine you use a dying candle to light a new one. Is the flame on the new candle the same as the flame on the old one? No. The wax and wick are different. But is it a completely different flame? No, because there is a direct causal link. The heat and light from the first flame directly conditioned the arising of the second. The process of burning has been transferred. Rebirth, from this perspective, is like that. The final moment of consciousness in one life, which is shaped by the totality of that life's karma, becomes the direct cause for the first moment of consciousness in a new life. It's not a soul that jumps from one body to another. It is the transfer of a karmic charge, a stream of energy and information from one combustible medium, a body, to the next. This leads to a very logical, step-by-step model. 1. Our intentional actions, kamma, create dispositions and energies. 2. These energies are carried along our individual stream of consciousness, shaping its flow. 3. At death, the physical basis for consciousness dissolves, but the karmic momentum of the stream continues. 4. This momentum, this final karmic impulse, seeks out and conditions a new set of physical and mental elements that are in harmony with it, leading to a new birth. It's like one billiard ball striking another. The first ball stops, but its energy and trajectory are transferred to the second, which then moves off in a direction determined by the initial impact. Now, this naturally brings up common objections. A skeptic might say, well, if it's not me being reborn, then what's the point? It might as well be a stranger. But this misunderstands the nature of identity. Are you the same person you were when you were 5 years old? Your cells have all changed. Your thoughts are different. Your personality has evolved. You're not the same, yet there is a clear continuity. Rebirth is just a more dramatic instance of this same principle. The being in the next life is not you, but it's not a stranger either. It is the direct inheritor and continuation of your karmic stream. Another question is, if I don't remember my past lives, how do they affect me? The cases of children we saw in Part 1 are the rare exception, where the veil between lives is unusually thin. For most of us, the narrative memory is wiped clean. But what isn't wiped clean are the deep-seated habits, tendencies, and dispositions, the karma. The phobias that Dr. Stevenson documented are a perfect example. A child who has a terrifying, inexplicable fear of airplanes may be carrying the traumatic imprint from a past life as a pilot who died in a crash. They don't remember the story, but they carry the emotional echo. The karma continues, even when the memory doesn't. So, what does this radically different view of rebirth mean for how you understand your own life? It suggests that you are not a blank slate that began at birth. The unique tapestry of your personality, your innate talents, your irrational fears, your deepest character patterns, the things you say are just how I am, may be the result of actions and experiences from a story that is much, much longer than this single lifetime. This invites a new kind of self-inquiry. Here is a practice for this week. Identify a strong, recurring pattern in your life. It could be a talent that came easily to you, a recurring type of difficult relationship, or a deep-seated habit you struggle to change. Instead of just accepting it or judging yourself for it, approach it with the curiosity of an archaeologist. Ask yourself, I wonder what seeds were planted for this to grow so strong? What actions, even just in this life, have I taken to water this particular pattern? You are beginning to see your life not as a series of random events, but as a chain of cause and effect, a karmic stream that you have the power to redirect right now, in this present moment. So, we return to the great puzzle. How can rebirth happen without a soul? The Buddhist answer is as elegant as it is profound. It is not a thing that is reborn, but a process that continues. Like a flame passed from one candle to the next, the stream of our consciousness, energized and directed by the force of our own intentional actions, or karma, flows from one life to the next. There is no permanent self, only a permanent process of cause and effect. This understanding moves us beyond a simple yes/no question about reincarnation. It provides a living, dynamic model of how our lives unfold. But this raises the most important question of all. So what? If this is the model, what are the implications for how we should live? Why does this ancient view of life, death, and rebirth matter for us, here and now, in the 21st century? Answering that question is the final and most crucial part of our journey. What are your thoughts on this model of a stream of consciousness? Does it make more or less sense than the idea of a soul? We'd love to hear your perspective in the comments. If this deep dive has expanded your thinking, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to Buddhism Wisdom, Spirituality. We'll see you in part 3. Part 3. Welcome back. Our journey has taken us from the startling, real-world evidence for past life memories to the profound Buddhist philosophy of how rebirth could occur without an eternal soul. We've explored the stories that challenge our materialist worldview, and we've examined a model of reality based not on a static self, but on a dynamic stream of consciousness shaped by the energy of our own actions, our karma. We now arrive at the heart of the matter, the question that all this exploration has been leading to: so what? Why does any of this matter for how I live my life today? What is the practical human value of looking at the world through the lens of rebirth? The answer is simple and transformative. This perspective is not ultimately about what happens when we die. It's about how we choose to live, right here, right now. It provides a powerful ethical and psychological framework that can infuse our modern lives with a deeper sense of meaning, responsibility, and compassion. First, the view of rebirth radically expands our timescale of responsibility. If you believe this life is all there is, it can be tempting to adopt a short-term perspective. Get what I can while I can. But if you see your life as one chapter in a much longer novel, your actions take on a new weight. Karma is not about a divine judge handing out rewards or punishments after you die. It's a natural law. The habits of mind you cultivate today, of anger or of patience, of greed or of generosity, are the very habits you will inherit tomorrow and in the next life. You are, in every moment, shaping the character of your future self. This isn't a threat, it's an empowering realization. You are the architect of your own future, on a scale you may never have imagined. Second, this worldview is a profound source of compassion. One of the central ideas in Buddhist cosmology is that in the beginningless cycle of birth and death, called samsara, we have all been everything to each other. That stranger you pass on the street? In a past life, they may have been your mother, your child, your dearest friend, or your bitterest enemy. When you begin to see others through this lens, it becomes much harder to hold on to anger, judgment, or indifference. It dissolves the illusion of us versus them and fosters a deep sense of kinship with all living beings. We are all fellow travelers in this vast, cyclical journey. Finally, this perspective gives us a beautiful balance of urgency and patience. The understanding that our actions now are shaping our future gives us an urgency to be kind, to practice mindfulness, to live ethically. There is no time to waste in planting good seeds, but it also gives us a deep and abiding patience with ourselves. We all have deep-seated, negative habits that can feel impossible to change. The view of rebirth helps us understand that these patterns may have been grooved over many, many lifetimes. It will take time and consistent effort to change them. This allows us to approach our own shortcomings, not with harsh self-criticism, but with a patient, compassionate resolve to slowly, gently turn the ship in a better direction. Now, It's important to emphasize that you don't need to have 100% belief in the literal truth of rebirth to benefit from this perspective. The Buddha himself discouraged blind faith. He famously advised a group of people in the Kalama Sutta, "Don't go by reports, by legends, by traditions, but when you know for yourselves that these qualities, when adopted and carried out, lead to welfare and to happiness, then you should enter and remain in them." The real test of any worldview is its practical effect. Does it make you a kinder, wiser, more compassionate person? So, let's reframe our question. Instead of asking, "Is rebirth real?" let's ask, "What happens if I live as if it were real?" What happens if I accept the possibility that my actions have long-term consequences and that all beings are interconnected? The answer is that you naturally start to live a more ethical and meaningful life. It becomes a skillful view, regardless of its ultimate metaphysical status. This leads us to our final set of practices designed to integrate this expansive view into your daily life. First, practice planting skillful seeds. Throughout your day, before you act or speak, try to create a micropause. In that pause, ask yourself, what is the intention behind this? Is it coming from a place of kindness, clarity, and generosity? Or from a place of greed, anger, or confusion? You don't have to be perfect. The simple act of checking your intention is the practice. You are consciously taking control of the karmic seeds you are planting in your own stream of consciousness. Second, practice seeing a bigger story. When you find yourself in conflict with someone or feeling intense frustration or judgment, take a moment to contemplate. What if, in the vastness of time, this person has been my greatest benefactor? What if this difficult interaction is the ripening of some ancient shared karma? This doesn't excuse harmful behavior in the present, but it can soften the heart. It creates a space around the conflict, allowing for the possibility of forgiveness, which is a gift you give to yourself. Third, practice cultivating your legacy. Your karmic legacy is not the money or property you leave behind. It is the qualities of mind you develop. Ask yourself, what virtues do I want to strengthen in this life? Compassion, patience, wisdom, courage? Choose one, and each day, find one small way to cultivate it. Read a paragraph about it. Practice it for 5 minutes. Congratulate yourself when you manage to express it. You are actively, consciously shaping the person you are becoming for the benefit of this life and all the lives that will follow in your stream. So, we have returned from a truly epic journey. We began with the astonishing stories of children who remembered other lives, which science struggles to explain. We explored the elegant Buddhist model of rebirth, not of a soul, but of a continuous stream of consciousness shaped by the force of our own intentions. And finally, we've seen that the true power of this view lies not in proving what happens after death, but in radically transforming how we choose to live right now. Perhaps the ultimate question is not, is reincarnation real? But, does living with an awareness of continuity and consequence help me to become a better human being? You are the author of a story that is vastly longer and more profound than you can probably imagine. Every thought, every word, every action is a sentence in that story. The invitation is simply this: make this chapter a beautiful one. What is one seed you would like to plant and cultivate in your life, starting today? Share your intention in the comments below, and let's support each other in this practice. If this journey has given you a new perspective, please press the like button and subscribe to Buddhism Wisdom, Spirituality. Thank you for taking this journey with us. May you live with wisdom and compassion.